G'day. I don't know. I always get stressed about openings. Okay.
No. We're live. We're rolling with this.
Yeah, cool. All right. Welcome everyone to the first episode of the Polandball Podcast. This has been a project that's been a long time in the making, but we're very keen to get the ball rolling now. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Vorsy. I'm a moderator on r/Polandball, and I'm joined today by a fellow moderator on the subreddit, but also probably one of the best-known Polandball artists of all time. You might know him as DickRhino. I know him as Nick. Nick, pleasure to be with you.
Man, it's so funny. Like me and Vorsy go way back. We've actually met each other because he was in Europe. He shouldn't talk to you about you in third person. We're sitting right here having a conversation. No, you were.
It's I mean, flatter me. Use third person. That's fine.
Nice. No, you were in Europe like many moons ago, and we were having like a meetup of sorts with a bunch of like just prominent people from the channel, and both you and me were there in Slovenia, as it were. And even back then, right? Even back then, you were trying to set up some sort of podcast thing during that meetup, that we were all gonna just like sit in a hotel room or something with a microphone and record like a podcast back then. So like I know that you have been wanting to do this for like a decade.
Oh, it's been close to a decade. Grand plans and all that. But yeah, it was funny. You're being in Europe. Obviously, if you can't tell, I'm from Australia, and having this rare opportunity to be in a room with all of these content creators that I'd known for a long time didn't quite happen. But you know what? It's 2023, and we're doing it now, and that's what matters, right?
It is. It's a shame though, because like it was so many. Like, it's like a who's who of the artists in the subreddit who have like found each other, created a more sort of like tight knit community that's just been a thing for like so many years now. So I was there, you were there, Brain for Breakfast was there. Just a lot of legends from that era, and would have been fun to.
Just some big names, big characters, and a truly international group, which I think is also what has made Polandball as an art form, as a community, however you want to describe it. I think that's what makes it special, is that it is really international. Obviously, we're all mostly making fun of one country, but there's artists from all across the globe, and it's that international character that I think makes Polandball such a compelling art form. Let's call it an art form.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that, because that was always like a thing of like, no, we're Poland. Like we've had our pride associated with this medium, right? As we've built it up. Whereas like Polandball is not just a meme. It's not just this stupid like rage comic thing. It is something else. It has had cultural significance. It has had cultural relevance during like the Ukraine Russia war, things of that nature, and. Like, because one thing that sort of like still annoys me a little bit is when you get these comments on the internet about how Polandball is sort of like xenophobic in nature, because you're like, oh, it's just jokes about stereotypes. It's all just racist meme balls or whatever. And it's like, if you go and look at our subreddit, it is like one of the most international and one of the most like inclusive communities that you can find on the internet. I think we have people from every single goddamn country in the world, like all together, all making comics, all laughing at the same jokes, all just having fun together.
That's just it. I mean, humor's universal to an extent. I think for sure Polandball has always been a bit crass, not always PC, but at the same time, you know, it's a degree of give and take it. You know, it's to use a sort of Anglo term, it's about the banter, right? And it's funny you mention rage comics, actually, because if you think about Polandball, what's one of the things that defines it is how it's been a very long-lived art form. There's longevity there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to the origins of Polandball, right, you're talking about it came from Krautchan, like this weird German 4chan offshoot.
It might be worth mentioning that like as much as I'm saying that like, oh no, it's all inclusive, it's all just a big happy smiling family. Like if you look at the origins of Polandball, which is sort of like tentatively what we were planning on talking about today, the place it came from is is like
not a friendly place.
Not a friendly place, kind of a racist place. 4chan is like no, it's not 4chan, it's Krautchan, which is like a German offshoot.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. Yeah. So for those not in the know, Polandball, I mean, some people think it started on Reddit, which is actually not true. It started on Krautchan, which was a German.
Some people think it started on 4chan. It's also not true.
Which is also not true. It started on Krautchan's int board, which was the only English-speaking board, and was kind of it was the most international of all the boards, as you can guess. There were a lot of people from BritChan, which was a British 4chan, a lot of Germans, and a lot of Poles. And it's funny that in that one board, you had so many things that are now part of modern meme culture. Yes. Wojaks, Rage Comics, Polandball, many.
That's the thing,
that are
people.
Part of the internet lexicon, right?
It's been revived now. Today, people are making their Wojaks and their Soyjaks everywhere. They don't know that Wojak and the first Rage Comics and the that feel, bro, and like those images, they're from that same era in 2009.
And the really wild thing is Wojak was he was a Polish user on Krautchan, and the first Polandball comics were made specifically to make fun of him and other Polish nationalists. It's so funny to think that all of these things that are just part of the background radiation of being on the internet at the moment, it comes from this one place, and Polandball was right there as well. It was made by a German user called Falco who wanted to make fun of Wojak.
I'm pretty sure Falco was British.
See, I thought it was German. I thought that was all kind of part of the mythos, as we weren't ever really sure where Falco was from. But it was always very clear that Wojak was Polish.
Yes. And
that's where it comes from. This little.
And the most,
these names.
and the first Polandball sort of like trope, that of Poland's flag being upside down. To this day, people don't know if Falco accidentally drew the flag upside down, or if he did it on purpose just because he knew it would piss Wojak off even more. We don't know, but it's stuck.
And it's stuck. It's funny to think that so many of and I think a lot of things that are also part of Polandball that are just accepted now also come from some of the peculiarities of Krautchan, like Israel being a cube. That come from the fact that the flare system on Krautchan, for whatever reason, showed Israel and Kazakhstan as square when everything else was circular. That's also why Kazakhstan's a brick, because it comes from weird code on Krautchan that they just ran with. It really goes that far back.
But back to the original point, we did not create Polandball. Let's on YouTube, the vernacular is a bit different. On YouTube, it's referred to as countryballs. Sometimes I've seen it referred to as mapping. It refers to a lot of content creators on YouTube refer to themselves as the mapping community, which is, I didn't know about that until I did more of a sort of a deep dive into what's happening outside of Reddit.
That's news to me. I don't know if I love that. I can kind of buy country balls, but to me it will always be Polandball, because that's what it was originally. And we're talking about something it's kept that name for well over a decade, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. We're starting this YouTube channel now, we're way late with this, because countryballs, as it were, has been a thing on YouTube for quite some time now. But a lot of it is just people taking content from our subreddit and making YouTube stuff with it, because we are, dare I say, it sounds pretentious, but sort of like the mecca of Polandball is what it has become.
I don't think that's pretentious at all. I think that's a fact. I mean, obviously there are a lot of really talented creators from all across the internet who make these comics and love this format, but I think it's pretty uncontroversial to say that a majority of Polandball comics over the years, as well as I'd say the best, have come from Reddit. It comes down to, if we're going to talk about early days of Polandball. So Polandball sort of started roughly around 2006, 7, 8 were the early years.
No, I think wasn't it 2009? Wasn't that when the first Polandball comics were made? I'm pretty sure it was September of 2009, which means that we are currently in the 14-year anniversary.
Wow. I mean, that tracks. I think what's interesting, so yeah, let's call it 2009. But then in roughly like 2011, a Serbian Krautchan user called 767 started dumping comics from Krautchan onto Reddit, onto r/Polandball.
Yes,
And
that is correct.
early,
It had existed for like 2 years or something when this one person migrated over and created a Reddit account and started posting Polandball comics on Reddit.
and you know what, Nick? It's funny going back and looking at some of those really early sort of Krautchan dumps because they're rough. A lot of those early comics
There are a couple
pretty,
of good ones. But yeah, there's a lot of rough stuff as well.
They're like cave paintings compared to some of the stuff that's
Now,
come out in the subreddit.
there is one thing that needs to be mentioned, and that is that a Polandball group was also created on Facebook roughly around the same time as the subreddit, maybe even like slightly ahead, maybe like a month before it or something. And that one sort of grew to prominence as well alongside the subreddit. But you know, Facebook is the Wild West. There was like no rules, no quality control. It was just a very, very hit and miss, I'm gonna say.
And I think it was also divided up into a lot of pages. Like
Yes.
you'd have an Armenia ball page or a Germany ball page, and I think it's also where the country ball's name started to sort of diverge from Poland ball. Is I think when you're looking at like Facebook and Instagram and those platforms, the country ball name maybe became a bit more commonplace rather than Poland ball. But on Reddit, it was always very consistently Poland ball.
Yeah, because we've always been the sticklers for rules and for tradition and heritage and just keeping things sort of like true to the art, pure to the art form of our idea of what Polandball is supposed to be. Maybe to our detriment, which is like why we're doing this now. I'm of the opinion that launching like a YouTube project and being on this medium as well and sort of like expanding ourselves outside of just a subreddit, I think it's something we probably should have done a very long time ago. But I think we were held back by our sort of dogmatism is the word I'm going to use.
I think it's a balance. I think it's. I know there'll be some of you out there listening thinking like sticklers to rules about MS Paint comics, and it is kind of a funny paradigm. That's a whole other podcast. But I think it is interesting that we were always pretty not strict necessarily. I just think we had a very clear idea of quality control because there have to be some ground rules, and yeah, maybe you could argue that it hurt us going into other platforms. Maybe we should have moved earlier on YouTube. But I also think it came from a place where on Reddit we had a really great community of literally hundreds of really talented artists. And we were also super hyper aware that we didn't really want to commercialize things or be crass with Polandball. Like we wanted to keep it quite community focused, where this is something that everyone can get involved in. There's no one person monopolizing the space. So it's a tricky one. I mean, I'm glad we're doing this now. Like, this is super exciting. But it's a tricky one to balance. I think one of the reasons the Reddit community has lasted as long as it has is because there was a line in the sand where, you know, okay, you can make your jokes. These are meant to be kind of shitty comics, but not everything is allowed. And I think the fact that PB still exists today and the subreddit lasted as long as it has is because there was a bit of quality control. You know, quality in the meme balls, man. It's important.
Definitely, and like I would agree that it resonated with people because and this is sort of again where like sort of my pride comes in, and like I'm of the opinion that like this whole global phenomenon of, you know, now you have thousands of countryballs channels on YouTube, thousands of countryballs pages on Facebook, just people from all over the world creating these there's wikis, there's animation projects, there's everything that's going on outside of the subreddit. But it's like when I found Polandball, which was pretty early on, right? I think the subreddit had been around for like maybe a year or something when I first bumped into it, maybe 2 years, something like that. It was still super small. Polandball was not a thing back then. It wasn't a global phenomenon yet. 767, that Krautchan user, he'd showed up, he'd started posting his comics, and he like started building up the subreddit from the ground up. But it was just still very grassroots, very word of mouth. And I think when I found the subreddit, it had like 2,000 subscribers, something like, not more than that. and it was just lightning in a bottle. Where I showed up, Aaron C14 showed up, Coli showed up, a bunch of like just really, really talented artists all sort of migrated and gravitated toward this place at the same time. We all started pumping out comics, and it grew to what it is today, which is a subreddit of over 500,000 subscribers, 650,000. But like it wasn't that when we found it. So I do have this sense of proprietorship. Is that the word? Where it's like,
I think fairly though. Like I think between you and Aaron and a few other prolific artists like Jay Paolo, Oscar, you're responsible for hundreds of comics, right? I think it's also worth pointing out that Polandball, and I think we can have that pride and say, if Reddit was sort of the nexus of the Polandball community, things wouldn't have lasted as long as they did without Java code, without the groundwork he put into building like meat and potatoes.
We're not talking about the code language Java code here. We're talking about a Reddit user whose username was Java code.
Oh yeah, that's worth putting out there. No, there was a user called Java Code who was super instrumental in starting. Really, he built most of the back end of the subreddit, and without him, I really don't think the subreddit and therefore the art form would have lasted as long as it has. His groundwork is it's hard to overstate.
He's super instrumental. He's one of the most important people in the history of Polandball, and one of the least well known, because he just did all of his stuff behind the scenes. He passed away a couple of years ago. It was a very sort of like just it was tough to deal with, and it was one of the reasons why I sort of drifted away from the medium for a while. And I did like I have a different YouTube project. I do like a gaming channel together with my wife, and that's what I've been spending sort of like the past 5 years on, before finding my way back to Polandball and finding my way back to the love of Polandball, because Brain for Breakfast and the Java Code both passed away pretty close to each other, and that was it was such a huge hit for so many of us, to where I had a long period of several years where I just didn't enjoy Polandball. I didn't think Polandball was fun anymore after having to deal with that.
Yeah, it was tough for all of us, particularly people like you and me who knew him in real life, right? I think it's worth talking about, because I think one of the challenge with internet communities is that unless people record things just become part of the ether, right? So I think it is worth recognizing that these two people, this Brit and this German, were so important in this art form community that we love and a lot of people love. For my, obviously DickRhino is one of the most important artists on Polandball. Some of the biggest comics of all time have been his. But for me, I've always just sort of plugged away in the background as a moderator. I've only made a few comics here and there. None of them have been like amazing. I'm as a typical Australian. I want it all to be Australia posting. But it's funny. I think what's all about what the really cool thing about the community is as well is, because it's been around for so long, you've had different people dip in and out. And I think that, you have your sort of different waves of personalities. I think Aaron's a great example, because he was instrumental in early days and then took a break, and now he's back in full force. And I think that's what's cool. Like as a thing, Polandball's existed so long that you can have people literally years, 5 years, 10 years later come back.
That's one thing I'm really looking forward to with this project, being able to go back and highlight and showcase stuff from the past of the subreddit and the past of this medium that some people might not know about, that it's been hugely influential. Whereas oh no,
yeah,
these things that you have done,
and also
they are because of this person, and you don't even know it.
That's just it. And also for me, I'm excited by the possibility of people rediscovering the love and getting back involved. I'd love to see an event or an FV BLT or a legit privilege get back into Polandball and start making comics again. And that's not like a crazy thought. We're seeing this already, that creators are rediscovering Polandball. It's an exciting time, and I think this project's really exciting because we're going to have a new way to enjoy and celebrate and highlight the really cool comics that are being made out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think so as well. And it's so it's funny, like we're launching this channel right now, right? So on YouTube we are newcomers, right? This channel is a baby. So there's probably already this big countryballs community on YouTube who are looking at this and be like, who the hell are you guys? who are you guys who are just showing up and talking as if you've...
We're your dads. We're your dads. We went out to get some milk and now we're back.
We're your estranged dads that you don't even... you didn't even know you had.
It's a weird one, hey?
Yeah.
I think it's also, I think something that's going to be interesting to navigate, because obviously we don't want to be wankers about it, but it's like, I 100% think there are going to be people out there who are making comics, talking about comics on YouTube and elsewhere, who just have no fucking idea where some of these tropes come from. Like, honest to God, how many of these people on YouTube can explain why Singapore is a triangle? Or
well, neither
Israel
can we. No one knows the popular theory about the Singapore economic growth triangle, but that's just a theory. No one actually knows.
But isn't that kind of the beauty of it as well? Like, it's this art form's so old that even though we're trying to do a bit of record keeping here, there are just some things that we just don't know, and it could just be random artistic choices. You know, like, I think that's kind of fun. Is that it's this. Yeah, the longevity of Polandball is pretty special. It's why I'm keen to be on this project. It's why I stuck around so long, because it is unique. I think it's fair to say it's a unique thing.
I know why Bermuda is a triangle. That's just because one guy back in the day, just there's this one comic that he made about Bermuda accepting like Uyghur refugees or something from Britain. There was like a news article about that. And he drew Bermuda as a triangle, and Java code was just like, fuck it, it's a triangle now, and just changed the flare. And that's it. That's it. Java code just decided that like now Bermuda's a triangle.
Yeah, I think that it's fun doing that sort of historiography of this shared art form, because so many things that we take for the commonplace are just someone somewhere just decided to have a bit of fun. Even it goes back to the whole Poland being upside down thing. Was this a mistake? Was this intentional? Also, just as an aside, it's funny nerding out on like the specificities of Polandball art. Like, this is a conversation I'm having. It's great.
Yeah. So it's a bit fun. There's a cat in the background. I'm trying to keep this cat occupied. It's a bit funny how we talk about being sticklers for the rules. We talk about being sticklers for tradition. And everything has to adhere to this sort of like whatever. But at the same time, if you look at it, it's like, you know, we come up with stuff, we come up with exceptions, and we're just like, yeah, it's okay because I did it and now it's a thing. So there's always this balancing act between inventing new things and being creative and innovating, while at the same time maintaining these sort of like quality standards. And I think that's what we've had as our main challenge for the past 10 years. This tightrope act of keeping the medium feeling interesting and vibrant, while at the same time having it be this unchanging pillar that everyone is supposed to congregate around.
Yeah, and I think that's just it. It is a balancing act. I think the barrier has always been, is it funny? I think what makes the Reddit community so good is that, forget all the art rules, I think there's a very high attention to making sure shit's actually funny. It's so writing. I think that what's really essential to understanding Polandball is that the writing needs to come first, right? These are MS Paint comics. They're as crude as they can be in their original form. They're as crude as can be. The writing needs to be good. You need to be razor sharp on it. That doesn't mean it needs to be Pulitzer Prize winning. Like, some of the funniest comics are the dumbest comics.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned Event earlier. Great Finnish creator who was active sort of around 2014. His comics were objectively stupid, but that's what made them so great, because the writing was good. You know, like, I think you're right. You got to balance. There's got to be some checks and balances, but I think that's the other thing that has made Polandball so enduring, is that bottom line, it just needs to be funny, and that's important.
Just throwing out about Event, that guy. I've previously heard people refer to Norm Macdonald as your favorite comedian's favorite comedian. And that's sort of like how I view Event as well, where he's like your favorite Polandball artist's favorite Polandball artist.
Yeah, it's true. I would love to do a poll of all of like the top artists on the subreddit and elsewhere and figure out what their main influences are. I mean, I'll throw it to you, Nick. Like, who would you say is your favorite artist on the subreddit?
I obviously have to throw out that name, Event, because his stuff is just. I've learned so much from him on just comedic timing. We had a thing we did. The brainchild of mine a couple of years ago, called Writer and Artist November, where I set up a thing where like one artist, I paired up people randomly. So one artist writes the script and another draws the comics. So everyone got to like cooperate and team up with someone else. And 1 year I made sure, because I was the one who set it up, I made sure that I got a script made by Event, because I just wanted to sort of like draw a comic that he had thought up. You
got it, man. If I was in your position, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not sure. Maybe I told people that everything was random, but I was like, no. That wasn't
evidence of mod abuse and nepotism here, people. You heard it first. Breaking news on the Polandball Podcast.
Yeah.
DickRhino's a bit of a dick.
Hey. Oof. Never heard that one before.
Yeah, man, I'm all about those cutting
username. No, but so people might not know this, because now we're talking to a new community. We're not just talking to Reddit. On the subreddit, we've had a system in place where like not everyone can just go there and post comics. You have to become an approved submitter. So you have to go through like an approval process to become a submitter in the subreddit and post comics. And we have our tutorial, we have our rule book and that you have to adhere to. And the idea is basically just you draw a comic, you send it into the mods, and we review it. And if we like it, then you get posting rights in the subreddit. That's sort of how it works. Now, for many, many years in the subreddit, it's been like waxing and waning, up and down, like how many people in the mod team are like being active and how many are sort of like sleeping. I mean, I've had a sleeping period as well. Like I was gone for a couple of years, but that's been the thing. So for many years, I handled maybe like 90% of all approval requests in the subreddit. So I have reviewed thousands of comics by like hundreds of artists, to determine who gets to post comics in the subreddit or not. And back to your point before, that was my main thing. The number one reason why a comic gets rejected is because it's not funny. And I know it's such a subjective measure, but it's not though.
It's not. I think, look, obviously comedy is subjective. I think that's why we also have a mod team, which, like the subreddit, is pretty diverse. You've got people from all different backgrounds, different gender expressions, different ages, whatever. And like, we can all still come to a consensus about what's funny or not. And, I've also been, after 8 years, there's definitely been a few periods during the subreddit's history where I've been the one doing a majority of approval requests. And Jesus Christ, I have seen some unmitigated dreck. Like honestly, it's both entertaining and depressing in equal measures, because there is some stuff that like.
That's an idea I have. That's an idea I have for content on this channel, that maybe we can do a thing like highlighting the absolute worst of the worst, because that's funny in its own way, right?
Exactly.
The problem is that the problem is that 99% of unfunny approval requests, they're not bad enough to where they become funny.
Yeah, I think it's just like anything. The stuff that's truly terrible is hilarious, and the stuff that's really good is hilarious. There is a lot of just boring, bad stuff. But I personally live for the real shit. The really disgusting, awful stuff, because it's funny, it's funny in its own way.
I think this is sort of, how we talked a bit before about how Polandball, that we view it as more than just a meme and more than sort of like an art form or a cultural movement or whatever. And a lot of that is because if you look at so many other memes and like how they develop over time, it's just repetition humor, right? It's repetition humor and familiarity, and you laugh at the thing because you know what's coming, right? This is the panel where he says no me gusta. This is the panel,
exactly.
Right? So I'm supposed to laugh here because he said no me gusta, and
I think that's a really good point. Is that a lot of meme is literally just like monkey brain pattern recognition stuff, like lost memes, right? Like, haha, the thing looks like the comic panel.
Exactly.
Whereas I think Polandball's different.
And that's what we've stuck to. Whereas, like, no, you can't just take Poland cannot into space and make it for the 1000th time or whatever. Whereas, like, you gotta do something with it. So I think that's one of the biggest sort of like quality control things we have had, just being a roadblock from having certain tropes just run into the ground and forcing people to not just tell the same joke over and over again. We're like, no, if you're from Australia, tell jokes about Australia. I want to know stuff about Australian culture that I didn't know about. Tell something that's close to home.
Hang on, whoa. Australian culture? What is that, bro? Like, come on, don't be silly.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what I tell people when they send in these approval requests with Poland cannot into space, and I reject it because I've seen that comic a million times already. I'm like, no, if you're from, I don't know, Portugal or whatever, make a joke about Portugal. Tell me something that you know about that I don't know about yet. You can make that.
I want to be able to know how to make fun of people from that country. So please, through a comic, explain how.
Exactly, and that's also a thing we can do, like in this setting, right? We can invite people. We can have people from anywhere to just, hey, it's Bash Portugal week.
Oh man, can we make that a thing? It's like, is Portugal even significant enough for that to be a thing? That's the real question.
It is a real question.
I don't know. Like, I think that's just it. Is you need what's also pretty compelling about Polandball is that it's a way to learn about other cultures, learn about other cultural bugbears. Personally, Polandball has been invaluable in helping me relate to and also make fun of South Americans. Like, that has been incredibly valuable in my life. I'm only partly joking, but that's just it. Yeah, I think the international character of it's important. Because not to get too highfalutin about it, but it is a way of connecting and learning about and with people from all over the world. I mean, we mentioned earlier about the Ukraine-Russia crisis. I remember even earlier during the Euromaidan, people were drawing Ukrainian and Poland balls on riot shields and stuff, and like. There is a mainstream cut through, and there is some relevance to day-to-day life. I think that's, again, without blowing smoke up our own asses, I think that is what's cool about Polandball, and again why it's stuck around for so long, because this is a thing that has unique cut through, unique relevance. It's uniquely funny at its best, and that's why we're so keen to sort of join the YouTube community, bring more content, share more content. It's special, and it's a pleasure being a part of it, right? Like, that's how I feel personally.
I think when I look back at the legacy we've had over the past 10 years or so, it's been more than a decade that we've been doing this now. I look back at, like, there's so many history nerds out there, and vexillology and flag nerds or whatever, who have like just approached us over the years and said like, I didn't have like a home on the internet or in my social life or whatever. I was just sort of like a loner outcast with my nerdy interests that no one else sort of connected with. And I found Polandball, and in this I found this huge international inclusive community that is just like flag jokes and culture jokes and country jokes. And so many people have talked about like how this sort of like sparked their love of history and sparked their love of international relations and learning about other countries and wanting to visit other countries and like opening up from their own sort of insular views of just seeing things through the lens of their own cultural context and just broadening their horizons of like how they view the world. And I've seen people, especially when it comes to like Brain for Breakfast, who's also been like such a hugely instrumental guy, and it's like he was so ahead of the curve on just doing stuff on YouTube, and when he died, just so many people came out and be like, this guy got me into all of my interests that I have today is because of this guy and his YouTube channel. So I do, that's a point of pride for me as well, just looking at building this community of misfits, flag misfits from all over the world who found a home here and who found like somewhere to belong, a context that made sense for them, and that I was able to help build that and help facilitate that and help that to happen is just something that stays with me.
I think rightly so, man. I think something else that's even worth pointing out is that it's always surprised me also just how many Polish people are involved with r/Polandball. I think it's very easy to write off Polandball as like totally inappropriate, but like if you see how many Polish people are in the media, you know that it's on some level it's fine. And I mean, the polls
that's because this has made Poland more relevant than it's ever been before, right?
It is driven investment to Eastern Poland in untold waves.
Hell yeah.
Frankly, they should be thanking us. But it's I think that's just it. Is that there is a degree of pride there. I know that both anecdotally, personally, that there have been so many people whose lives have actually like changed through Polandball, which is a weird thing to say. Like
I met my wife through Polandball.
You're a great example.
Yeah, I have a kid now because I met my wife through Polandball. Ain't that crazy?
I mean, that is pretty mental. It is. I think there is something special about that. I think it's again right to mention B4B because I think he was also a real first mover when it came to the YouTube thing, and he was super instrumental. But I think what's
even
cool
before that, like he was also a moderator in the subreddit. He also did like approval requests and helped like just guide people and build a community. And it's like he was just such a helpful guy. He just always had the time for other people.
Yeah,
always like just as invested and as all the rest of us in just building this thing.
I think that's another thing that's worth pointing out is that call it luck of the cards or whatever, but I think Polandball has also it's brought a lot of really cool people together, really solid gents and ladies, and I think for me the exciting thing about this podcast, about the YouTube channel, is that this is an exciting new chapter where hopefully we can get even more people involved, find the next generation of cool artists, cool people. Like, there's legs in this thing yet. And I think it's all, you call it a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think this thing's lasted for as long as it has, and that hasn't been an accident. And I think we ought to keep it going. We ought to keep it going for the next decade and find the next group of sociopathic Swedes who like drawing comics about Polish people, Like, that's really important. Society will be better.
Yeah. So
I joke.
So moving forward, right? We're still gonna do the subreddit stuff. Obviously, we're gonna keep on moderating, keep on doing the approval requests, and keeping that alive. But you're the one who's gonna be running this podcast, right?
It's exciting. It's going to my head already, man. Like if the approval requests thing already didn't give me enough ego, I'm gonna go mad with power. Fantastic. No, I think that's just it. The subreddit's not dead. I think, let's be real, it's still going to be the place where a lot of the best Polandball art the internet's made, and that's where it's going to come from. That's still going to be a thing. I think this YouTube channel and this podcast are it's a value add. It's a way of keeping it going. It's a way of widening the funnel. And
there you go. And not to mention that like, you know, a goal with this is to take a lot of people who are on YouTube who are into the whole countryballs thing and maybe don't even know that there is this huge countryballs community on Reddit that has existed for a decade. Like a place with 650,000 members who have been drawing comics and just being a thing together and building a community for the past decade. Some of y'all don't even know that. It's there. It's been there, and we want you to come. We want you to participate in it and like just breathe new life into the subreddit as well. That's a part of why we're doing this.
Oh, 100%. Like for me, like honestly, like I'm a big comics fan as well, and there's nothing more exciting than discovering, oh, okay, here's a run by an artist you really like, and then you've got hundreds of comics to go out and read. Like I love that feeling when I'm sort of on the internet browsing my way through comics. If you haven't got around r/Polandball, you've literally got thousands of comics waiting for you. Like search by top, and you can spend fucking hours just having proper love. Like I wish I could do that now. Like I wish I hadn't been doing this thing for the best part of a decade, and I could go in with fresh eyes. Like that's a pretty exciting opportunity.
Yeah. It's like that XKCD comic about like being so excited when you can introduce someone to something that's like, you know, it's the best thing in the world, and and they haven't heard of it yet, so you get to see their like first reaction to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that vibe maybe is even coming across with us chatting now. Like that, I don't know about you, but that's the feeling I'm getting at the sort of start of this project, is we have an opportunity to introduce some people to some really cool shit.
There's a valuable goal. But yeah, rotating guests, I assume, is going to be the thing here. We're going to leave like just, hey people, in the comment section, both on YouTube and on Reddit, do you want to be on the Polandball podcast? Just let us know. Write us a line. Let us know if you want to be on this thing.
Yeah, that's just it. This is a community project. Personally, I want to get some of the really influential artists over the years on and talk to them. I've got a few ideas in mind already, but you know, in an ideal world, I'd get a different nationality every time we do it. We could probably almost do that, but that's just it. If you've got something fun to share, hit us up, because we want this thing to have legs, even though Polandballs don't have legs and shouldn't have legs. They're balls.
And also, if we're going to be sticking to some sort of format, if we're going to be rounding out the discussion sometime now.
There we go.
Yeah, I feel like we've hit a good point for that. You got to throw in the plugs, man. That's a big part of podcasting. People always have to be allowed to plug their shit.
I think that 100%. I think that's another part of it, right? Is that for so long, like a lot of the most talented creators haven't had the chance to really toot their own horn, plug their shit. That's another reason we're building this platform.
I'm going to say this one as well. And that is about the whole thing about not wanting to commercialize Polandball and wanting it to be this sort of like pure community-driven thing only. One of my biggest regrets, and like I mean this, one of my biggest regrets when it comes to anything Polandball related, is that we were such sticklers for that sort of like idea of purity that we never let Brain for Breakfast advertise his channel in any way in the subreddit. Yeah. Never. Now, he's such a talented guy that he managed to get his channel to take off anyway, and it was successful anyway. But I feel like we did him a disservice by that, and he should have been allowed to plug his shit, man. Right? Because he was doing cool stuff, and why would we not let people show off their cool stuff to the world? It's just, I don't know.
For sure, I think
rethinking some old things that aren't true anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I think that said, it's probably testament to his quality as a content creator that his stuff thrived without the Reddit support. You know, like he didn't actually need it. But, times are changing. We want to be able to give talented creators a platform. I think that's really important. I think we want to stay true to what Polandball is. Like, it isn't some cash grab to sell plushies, or something to be driven into the ground like so many other internet tropes or memes or whatever have. But I think it's a good mindset shift. There's a reason we're doing it now, and yeah, I think it's a brave new future. Not to get too up ourselves, but it's a change that's overdue. Yeah, maybe B4B should have had the chance to plug stuff. Other talented content creators like yourself, maybe, but better to change now than never. And I'm just excited to see what people have in store. I want to plug shit. I want to share cool shit with people.
Yeah, and just this is as everything that's new on YouTube, it's a trial and error process, right? We're figuring out the format of this whole thing as we go, and just seeing what works and what doesn't.
Which is exactly what we did all those years ago with the subreddit. There wasn't some grand plan. It was just working shit as we go, and if it's funny, it'll stick around.
Yeah.
Again, it's an exciting project. We're glad to have you around along for the ride. And yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I know I could talk with hours with you, Nick, but I think that's a good place to leave it. We've given you some background about sort of the history of Polandball, where it's headed next, and this is the first in what's sure to be many more podcasts and other fun stuff to come out of this new project. Onwards and upwards.
Hell yeah! I'm gonna.
So,
before we end, I'm gonna take the opportunity to plug my shit.
Oh, dude, plug away.
There we go. No, because hey people, did you know that for the past 5 years I've had a fledgling little gaming channel that I do together with my wife? We're called 2-Star Players. Go check it out. 2-Star Players on YouTube. YouTube/2-Star Players. It's We've built up a modest following over the past 5 years. It's at 17,000 subscribers, I think, or something. It's a bit dormant right now at the moment because like I said before, I just got a kid, got a little 8-month-old baby at home. So the amount of time I've had for recording gaming stuff together with my wife has been a bit low recently, but I have a friend.
Don't play the kid card, man. It's because he's been sitting in a basement drawing Polandball comics for months.
There we go.
Be true to your audience, man.
No, but I have a friend who's also a dad, and he's like, yeah, that's how it works. You shit out the baby, and the first time or the first period of time, you lose everything, right? Because the baby needs support 24/7. All of your old life is just sort of gone in an instant, and now you have to devote all of your energy to this little potato that's gonna die unless you stop it from dying. And then as the baby grows older and turns into a kid, gradually, day by day, you reclaim parts of your old life. Today it's this thing, tomorrow it's this thing. You just get more and more things back over time, and I think that's sort of a comforting way of looking at it. So that's where we're working toward that. So the gaming channel is gonna come back. It's not dead. It's just we haven't had time for it lately, and we'll see, because now I'm gonna dedicate time and energy to this Polandball project as well. But all things, if the stars align, maybe I can even have 2 YouTube projects running at the same time. Wouldn't that be crazy?
That'd be crazy. But yeah, go check them out. 2-Star Players, Nick. Very good gaming content, and I'm not just saying that because the Swedish Special Forces are at my door. I am very scared. But no, it was a pleasure having you on, Nick.
Thank you.
Great to kick this off with a legend of Polandball, and keen to make this more of a regular thing. So, I'm Vorsy signing off. This is Nick. Say goodbye, Nick.
Goodbye, Nick.
There we go. He's clever. He thinks he's clever. But no. Pleasure to have you on, and tune in next time for the Polandball Podcast. Fuck, it's fun to say that. But yeah, join us for the next one. Take care.